team of at least a comparable ilk.
Look, I'm not going to second guess Aaron Ramsey, but there's a new adventure here. There's new teammates, there's this impetus and momentum that surrounds the club at the moment. Arsenal fans are excited. I think that must transmit itself to the players. They must feel this is a chance for us to do something, not just I think that's how Arsenal fans want them to see it.
Still a nod to how well Arsenal played the ball out of danger there, with 4 Borehamwood players surrounding 2 Arsenal players, and they did very well. The move continued, didn't quite fall, as Ramsey continued his run from deep. Perez was up there, so was Mkhitaryan.
Yeah, lovely interplay here, Mkhitaryan there. Ramsey getting it back to him, just a bit too much weight on that pass. But very intricate interplay around the box. The other thing we should mention, Russ, is that there's no captain's armband as far as I can see. Maybe that's certainly nothing on the team sheet.
No, and I think it was the same in the first half as well, which is a very fair point. As Emery was saying in that media conference recently, he wants to have kind of 5 captains, or at least 5 players who are effectively captains in his first team.
He's looking at Aaron Ramsey. Is he perhaps wearing an armband on his right-hand side there?
Potentially so. Yeah, potentially so.
But I think the point remains that
very much so.
We don't know who he's going to announce. Will he announce 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5? We spoke to some of the fans before this game. So many names in the frame. Someone even mentioned Liechtensteiner.
Here's Kolasinac for a moment, who does very well indeed. Oh, Ramsey decided to have the shot. Nketiah was waiting to pounce as well. Took it first time, straight at McHale. Ramsey not a million miles away from his first goal of pre-season.
Yeah, close to Ramsey. Ramsey was mentioned as one of those potential captains. Liechtensteiner. Koscielny, of course, he's pretty much the man in possession after Per Mertesacker retired to take up the academy manager role.
But of course, we unfortunately probably won't see him till around Christmas, let's say. I don't know for sure.
Absolutely, I think New Year for him. And then there's players like Mustafi got a mention from the fans here at Borehamwood. So there's lots of candidates, lots of people who they consider to be leaders. It'll be interesting to see what Unai Emery does with that. Will he rotate it, have a different captain for different competitions? How many will he have? We'll find out soon enough. But I don't think he puts as much stock in having one player who is given that ultimate responsibility.
Just taking a look at that replay there for the opportunity. It was another good cutting run from the left, this time from Perez to set up Ramsey or Nketiah. Ramsey deciding to take the shot. Could you have Socrates coming in as a fresh face, as a fresh skipper?
The great thing is we have this experience and this seniority in the team. We have these leaders in the team.
Mkhitaryan on the far side. Have a ball through to Nketiah. Good balance under pressure. There from Chambers, smashing Shakes full in the face, but barely even knocked him back. Delayed, slightly fortuitously getting the ball through to Nketiah. Good ball over the top. Was that handball from Ramsey? It is a goal, but as Aaron tried to chest it down, it just flicked his arm.
Yes, his arm was out to the left. Certainly helped him control the ball. Yeah, just the ball over the top for Ramsey. Well played from Nketiah in the build-up. It was Mkhitaryan who found Ramsey, and just that right arm coming out. Cheeky little finish, but it's not going to count. A shake of the head from Aaron Ramsey.
The applause you can, on your screen, go to Morgan Ferry, who's going off the field after what was an excellent hour, effectively. And onto the field will come Sean Jeffers, wearing 18 for Borehamwood. Sean, formerly of Chelmsford City, another forward ostensibly, so Borehamwood will keep 2 up top, now with 2 subs in the form of Ash and Jeffers. Ferry's excellent day's work comes to an end. Yet to see Clifford, Martin, Thomas and Vose as the other potential options, as we take another look on the screen at Nketiah's finish.
Yeah, lovely finish. Keeper may have done better, but the run, the anticipation, the little flick, he's just lethal from those positions. And you've seen a lot of Nketiah in recent seasons, haven't you, Russ?
I most certainly have, with commentary on Arsenal.com of the Premier League 2 primarily, but some of the FA Cup youth games, and obviously an under-18 game of note as well. And every game I've covered, he's been absolutely superb. And it is still, as I said before, that predatory ability and that instinct that's impressed me most. But another thing we haven't really talked about is, I think, his attitude. He seems to be someone who will run and run and run, do his job for the team, close down space, keep the ball in and chase down a lost cause. He's got that side to his game that I like as well.
I think that's important, isn't it? Because you can't just be a finisher. If you're going to fit into this Arsenal first team, you need to get a link up with the other players, hold the ball up. If he can do all that, then you can see him getting chances in the new season. Feels like the Carabao Cup, the Europa League really could be chances for him.
Mkhitaryan flicks it on. We're just about to get the job done there through Tom Champion. He's had a good game actually, wearing 8. Came relatively close to a goal earlier in this half. Jersey number 8, Ramsey, brought down.
Yeah, Boreham would have been competitive in this second half. Just the 1 goal conceded. They've closed the likes of Ramsey down pretty well. Certainly disciplined, defending well as a unit.
Get a view then, by the way, of the definite captain's armband for Ramsey. Just from the other side of the field, it honed in on the captain word for us, so he has been given that job for the second half, even though it's not official on the team sheet. Here's Jenkinson again. It's a good ball at his feet, just at times the delivery from those opportunities on the right has left a little to be desired. Chambers, oh, nearly a great ball through to Kolasinac. Shakes again, sticking a foot out. It's therefore Arsenal throw. Mkhitaryan thought about a shot for a second there. He was shaping up a curling effort. Good block from Chambers. Almost one-touch football. Perez to Ramsey to Ren Adelaide. Jeffrey Adelaide! What a strike from the Frenchman, back at the club and back in business in terms of goals. He's hungry for a future. Boy, did he show it there with a super finish from distance. Jeffrey Adelaide's first of pre-season. Borehamwood 0, Arsenal 7.
Well, it's a venomous finish. It's got to be 25 yards out. Only one thing on his mind, takes aim, unerring into the bottom corner. And what a return for Jeff.
Really good strike. We know his quality. He came across from France a few years ago as a very young player. Now Arsene Wenger was very excited about what Jeffrey Adelaide could bring to the table, and we've seen it in flashes clearly, haven't we, at Arsenal youth level, away on loan and on occasion with the first team, but maybe not quite as much as we would have liked. This kind of guy, if he can get his tail up and engineer a run, I think he's got huge potential still, and still a young player.
Well, he had a good loan spell in Ligue 1 last season, so maybe another loan spell beckons for him. But before that, he can really make a mark on this pre-season.
Oh, not too far away from another, nearly 2 goals in 2 minutes from Ren Adelaide, just leant back and about a foot too much over the bar, but great effort again.
A bit closer in this time, possibly an easier chance. Just snatched at it slightly off balance as he struck the ball.
Just to remind you, 3 goals from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, 1 each from Reece Nelson, Alexandre Lacazette, Eddie Nketiah, now Jeff Ren Adelaide. Well, the point the lads on the touchline discussed at half-time, Dan and David, was how this Arsenal team, just on the example of what we've seen in this 60 minutes, the defenders seem to be focusing on defending and the forwards seem to be focusing on forward play, and there isn't as much perhaps interchangeability where people get vastly out of position and try and do another role. I do wonder whether that slight distinction and that slight discipline in that regard might be a real asset under Unai Emery.
Well, I think there certainly has to be a look at the positioning and that discipline and that positional sense, because we can get exposed against the biggest teams, often when we're pushing for goals, and that natural adventure in the side often was our undoing in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think having that discipline and that shape is going to be very important. I think we've been less cohesive in this half. I think you look around the team, there's lots of players who haven't played alongside each other before. Lucas is coming back from a loan spell. Mkhitaryan's never played alongside him, for example. Then you look at Nketiah and Jeff. This is a new unit, so they're finding some time to just build that understanding up.
They're trying to get their third of this half. Perez to Mkhitaryan. Support once more from Stevens, who continues to put in a shift. Here's Kolasinac. Back to Perez once more. Left ball. 1-2 with Mkhitaryan. Nketiah just decided to back off the central defender and find some space, and didn't quite work on that occasion. About to see one more Borehamwood replacement, Sorba Thomas. Coming onto the field. Off goes Angelo Balanta, the Colombian-born player that we talked about earlier in the match, who's done well actually in this heat as well. To keep up a solid shift for the best part of 65 minutes is not bad going.
Yeah, Balanta has done well, put in a good shift, and one shot that was deflected just over Emery Martinez's goal. Now they would love to get a goal here, the home side.
Seen a huge amount of holding in the game. He's had a kind of relatively quiet half. We know he's an exciting young player. He's very strong on the ball. One who, again, will have credentials to reassert to a degree when it comes to the first team in coming weeks, won't he?
Exactly. He's at this stage in his career where he needs to play, he needs to learn from those experienced centre-backs and a very decent coach. So much room for improvement with Rob Holding, and of course with Callum Chambers as well. Haven't seen too much of him in this half, perhaps because Ferrier went off. He was the real problem that was being caused to our defence, so maybe a slightly easier second half for a centre-back than it was in the first half. And also, as I said earlier, Boreham not really committing that many men forward.
Just give a little nod to a quite clever cross shot from Jenkinson from the far side. Had a lot of power, and on this rare occasion, no Arsenal player, Nketiah included, had taken the gamble to maybe continue the run. We are, as we thought, about to see him. Matteo Guendouzi, the fifth of Unai Emery's new signings so far. He will be making his Arsenal pre-season debut. Welcome to the man wearing 29. Listen to the applause. Brilliant to see him get his chance. And Jeffrey Adelaide, the man to come off, has done so well. I think he's proved his point. Sensible way to do it, perhaps.
Absolutely, Guendouzi.
Going straight into the centre of the pitch. Very exciting.
Subscribe, guys.
Around him. Great player, great passer, can run with the ball.
Subscribe.
At the age of 17.
We need that 1K.
Some high-level experience.
Out of the Paris Saint-Germain academy. Quite make it there. Lauren, as you say, is a very young player. A couple of solid seasons. Here's his first touch for Arsenal. The David Luiz's of the hair, isn't there?
Playing centre midfield with alongside Chambers. Aaron Ramsey just pushed up into the slot. Jeffrey Adelaide vacates it. Contrast between Celtic
static maybe in the second half with the changes and with the slight
half side had that advantage of having played together more, whether it's Lacazette and Aubameyang or Hector Bellerin and Reece Nelson down the right-hand side. They've got plenty of previous, so easier for them just to find that cohesion, that understanding from the first whistle.
Guys, let's subscribe. Let's subscribe.
Filling each other out.
Oh, lovely back heel from Nketiah, and that's a sensational goal from Emery. His first of pre-season, played with a barnstorming run, an impudent back heel, and a cultured finish. Borehamwood 0, Arsenal 8.
There's the pass from Kolasinac, just a little flick, wasn't it, from Nketiah, and Mkhitaryan arrows one into the bottom corner. Just a flick here from Nketiah, just kept the ball on course for Mkhitaryan's right foot. He shaped and shot and scored. Fine goal.
Excellent contributions from all three involved there. The run of Kolasinac, the vision and deft touch of Nketiah. Mkhitaryan, that's just him at his very best, isn't it? Graceful, poised, calm, and just classy.
And I think the awareness of Nketiah there, just to know who's running in behind him and just leave enough on the ball that it runs into his path. Really good awareness from Nketiah.
Ash disappointed that he sprung the offside trap there. I think the youngster, as we mentioned, who was on loan from Barnsley at Borehamwood last season, now signing permanently, thought he'd maybe stolen half a yard, but the referee's assistant was well placed. And Arsenal get the decision. Here they come again. Dizzy. To Kolasinac and back.
Like a lot of Arsenal fans, I hadn't seen Guendouzi play before. He's playing very deep, isn't he, at the moment?
He's amazing, guys.
The right hand side at the moment.
Arsenal have scored against any team, absolutely any team. 7 goals in the last 8 years. That's in the last 8 seasons.
In the fold in the next couple of weeks, he'll be another player to that area of the field, which would be very exciting.
Goalkeeper Bernd Leno, of course. We'll be seeing him soon enough. And Stefan Lichtsteiner on his way back from the World Cup.
Those are the 5 so far. Could well stop at that, we'll wait and see, but it's big additions. As Chris Harris said in the first half, varied additions, hopefully addressing a few areas of the squad that probably needed a bit of a reboot. See that as well, Chris. There's actually quite a break between this and Arsenal's next pre-season game. It's not till a week on Thursday, so talking basically 12 days before Atletico Madrid, then Paris Saint-Germain, which I'll be looking forward to being back behind the microphone for, then Chelsea, and then Sevilla, of course, and Emery's old team. So they'll come thick and fast then, after a bit of a glut, after a bit of a gap.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done on the training pitches at Colney, getting some of those players back in, the likes of Mesut Ozil, of course, getting them integrated into the squad, integrated into the way that Unai and the coaches want to work. But I think what's really encouraging to see this attack.
Kolasinac to Mkhitaryan, back to Guendouzi. Shot from Chambers from distance. Certainly caught it well, but just lacked the direction.
Yeah, worth a try. Carl Jenkinson was shouting for a pass on the right. Would have been the easier option, but he had space to hit it, had time to hit it, and tried his luck.
Let's subscribe,
I was
guys.
going to say it's encouraging to get this business done early, and Arsenal fans will know it's been many, many years since we made this many signings this early in the summer. I know the transfer window closes earlier this summer, August the 9th, I believe, so there isn't that last-minute wait on the 31st, but to have the players in, together, working hard, working to the same philosophy.
Let's subscribe, guys.
It's hard to quantify how important that is as you go into a new season.
You'll struggle to find anybody that doesn't think that changes to the transfer window are a good thing. I think it's so much fairer for all clubs, all players, and almost for fans to a degree as well.
Absolutely. But getting these players together. Okay, it's Man City on the first day of the season, but we will be ready because I think we've got the time to get ready. The players will be fresh, they'll be rested.
It's a great test of the coach's actual coaching skills then, as much as the tactics as well, which I know it's the balance that modern football is, but when that window's shut, you've just got to work with that team from the very get-go. Quite like that. Down to the final few minutes. Arsenal have hit 8 so far. Will this be 9? Wonderful raking pass. Played by Mkhitaryan. ARSENALL joining this one up. 1-2 with Ramsey. Showtime to Shakes.
Well, that's Holding for you. A wonderful header. Towering, powerful header from Holding. Hasn't had too much to do. Has looked very solid. Mustafi just sweeping up behind him. He's been the deepest of the two centre-backs in this second half.
Emery just deep in discussions, as we saw on our screen a moment ago, with his assistant coaches. Steve Bold, of course, retained at the club, along with Juan Carlos Acedo and Pablo Villa. Discussion in front of us. If you were Unai Emery, what would you give your first 45-minute team out of 10? Or reserve judgment on the second 45 for a minute. We'll give them another couple of minutes.
I am not Unai Emery, by the way.
if. I'd say a solid 8, 7 or 8. I agree with you at the back. There were a couple of slight sticky moments, but
yeah, I think he would have been thrilled to see how Aubameyang, Lacazette, Reece Nelson linked up. I think the youngsters like Smith Rowe looked really impressive in the first half.
Maitland-Niles, no surprise.
Absolutely, yeah. And defensively, yeah, a little bit casual at times, but it's very early days. He'll take that with a pinch of salt. There's work to be done there. We all know that. And second half, yeah, solid if unspectacular, and clinical when needed. Good to see Ramsey back on the pitch. Chambers in a different position. I think Lucas Perez has been interesting. He's
liked it.
Back in the fold. Had a good year at Deportivo, and very much in the frame.
Very nice pass from Chambers. That's the kind of thing he can do from defensive midfield that perhaps suits that positional shift for this particular game. Jenkinson eventually out-muscled. Shakes nicks one through. You get to see Ramsey get a goal. If there was one more player to score between now and the end, I think that would be a well-received one for a lot of different reasons.
I think that might make the difference if he's mulling over the contract. If I just score against Borehamwood, I will stay. Oh, he's looked pretty sharp, hasn't he? Another one who's had 2 good weeks of pre-season training. No World Cup for Wales, of course, this year.
Arsenal's midfield just found a little wanting there, a bit of indecision. Kieran Murtry is one of the players who stayed out for the whole game in this heat and did all right there. Dizzy brings it forward. Have a ball over the top. Can Nketiah get that? Just beaten to it by Tom McHale. Frustration there for Fernie Elasamni, whose control let him down.
Few Arsenal fans starting to stroll out of the ground, try and beat the traffic, but a full house here today. Good atmosphere.
3 minutes plus time added on to go. And Arsenal get a 9th and average a goal every 10 minutes. Nketiah against Jamal Fifield, the replacement who's come on. It's Perez who has the crack, and it's Fifield who makes a brave block. Fifield defender brought in from Gateshead. He's another of the new signings for this summer for Borehamwood. He did pretty well there, didn't he?
They have defended quite well in the second half. Borehamwood, I think they've been less expansive. I think the first 10-15 minutes of the game they were a bit too gung-ho perhaps, got caught out a few times. Aubameyang's hat-trick was testament to that. A little bit more considered since the break. Obviously they've been outclassed, but they have made it tough for Arsenal at times.
Holding to Mkhitaryan. Lofts one over, looking for Ramsey. It's just the vision of the Armenian, isn't it? Just what he can do out of almost nowhere, just flick the ball up like that.
And we talk about Nketiah's anticipation and that nose for goal and a good run into the box, and Ramsey's obviously got that too. Always looking to get him beyond the defence. And I think Ramsey's adventure and his tendency to do that, that's why you need someone like Torreira. You need someone who's going to want to do that tidying up in the midfield.
Be disciplined while doing it as well.
If you look around the squad, Russ, and it looks to have the right variety. Gaps have been plugged, good mixture of experience, youth. There's a freshness about it. Let's not judge too much on a game against Borehamwood, but this is a good start, good workout. Shake off some of that rust. We're going to see more from this team in the next month or so, and then the true credentials will be shown when Man City come to the Emirates.
Certainly won't forget commentating on the league game against Manchester City at Emirates Stadium a few days after the League Cup final loss, and
well, you did well to get there, really, didn't you?
Freezing cold. Myself and Reece Weston felt our feet freezing to the commentary box during the game, and obviously a game that was dead before half-time and was a pretty bleak experience, sadly. So, as you say, with those two back-to-back losses to that opponent and the gulf, the chasm that you felt at that stage, this litmus test with all the changes since will be fascinating.
Absolutely, and I think City and Chelsea is as tough as it's going to get, but we're on the right track.
Absolutely no time added on. Referee Finney has seen enough, and he's seen 8 goals. He's officiated across a strong Arsenal performance, we can safely say. Much changed teams, 23 different Arsenal players getting an outing over the 90 minutes here on Arsenal.com. And 8 goals in total, 5 from the first half team, a brilliant hat-trick from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and goals from Reiss Nelson and Alexandre Lacazette. And from the second 45-minute team, Eddie Nketiah with a goal and a brilliant assist for Jeffrey and Adelaide, and Henrik Mkhitaryan with a nicely taken strike as well. 8 goals in total, the odd defensive frailty, the odd lack of cohesion, but Chris, to broadly sum up, what would your take be on what we've witnessed over the last 90 minutes?
Yes, Unai begins, and Unai begins in style. Lots to enjoy about this game, much for him to ponder now as he returns to the training pitches. A few issues to iron out. This is just the start. Much more work to do, much more to come. But we've seen some good goals, some great cohesive play, especially going forward. Aubameyang to the fore. A promising start.
Emery is up and running. Arsenal are up and running for another season. And so far, so good. Full time at Borehamwood. It's the Wood 0. Arsenal 8 as we hand you back to Dan Roebuck and to David.
Many thanks to Russ Hargreaves and to Chris Harris on commentary duty. David, an easy 8-0 win. We sort of expected that, but I thought that Borehamwood contributed. It wasn't the worst workout, was it, by any stretch of the imagination?
No, I think their manager had a little word at half-time, and they stepped it up a bit second half. And you know, it's always difficult when there's wholesale changes at half-time. Arsenal put a completely different side out second half. But I think it was a competent win, competent performances all round by the side, and we've seen a couple of players in new positions today, which was interesting. Like to see the reasons why. Maybe we can find out a bit later. We always look into these things and think 5-0 first half, 3-0 second half. That means first half side's better. Does that work that way? Well, possibly. I think the threat of Lacazette and Aubameyang's pace up front would have slightly enhanced the fact that Arsenal were more dominant in the first half. Borehamwood dropped off a bit deeper. I think their manager probably said at half-time, look, don't fear them so much. Go out, push a bit in, try and make something happen for yourself, and put a bit of pressure on the youngsters, and I think that was key. The youngsters probably that played second half were put under a little bit more pressure than the first. We're joined by Callum Chambers, who is fresh from his second half display against Borehamwood. Callum, obviously it's Borehamwood, but still we felt it was a decent workout, certainly in the second half.
Oh, for sure, you know, it's our first game of the season, first friendly. It's always going to be tough. Conditions don't help either, but You know, no, it was a good test for us, good run out, and I think it's important we put into practice what we've been learning on the training field, and I think we did that today.
Yeah, Callum, you talk about the training field. Saw you in a new position today. I've seen you all across the back four in the last couple of seasons, you know, putting in a good shift and trying to nail down a place for yourself. How are you feeling about defensive midfield? Is it something that the manager's looking at maybe 2 or 3 different players, considering them in that position? And from my point of view, I can see it looking like a springboard to attack more than just a defensive midfield position though.
I think, yeah, as you said, the manager spoke to me about that position. And yeah, it's a new one for me. I played there a little bit growing up, but you know, it's a position I feel like I could grow to enjoy. It's out there today, felt good. I just need you know, training, practice and games in that position to get comfortable.
We saw in the first half the manager, particularly in particular, talking to the players that were in that position at times in the game. And he was telling them to try and get the ball early, get it forward from that position, rather than just be a continuity player, go wide and that.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's something that, you know, you can get into your game, all you boys, and start moves off from that position because it releases an extra player going forward?
I think so, yeah. It's an important position. You know, if you can get on the ball, turn and break the lines, you know, it kills their press.
Yeah.
So I think, as you said, it's an important position, and we all need to, anyone who's playing in that, needs to learn how to do that. Obviously, you can't do it all the time, you can't take risks. When it's not on, you can bounce it backwards to an angle for someone else to play through the lines. But, you know, if you can get on it, if you've got time and it's not a risk, turn and play forward, and that's the best way to get through a press.
Just finally, you signed a new contract, of course, earlier on this month. You must be pleased with that. Obviously, the new boss, has got a lot of faith in you.
Yeah, obviously, it's very pleasing to sign a new contract at this club, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future.
Callum, well done today, and we'll see you over the season.
Well done, mate. Good luck in the future.
Callum Chambers, how did you think he did in that defensive midfield role? We know that in his dim and distant past, when he played for Southampton youth team, he did play in that position, but as you mentioned, he's played all across the back line for Arsenal. Do you think this is a position he can prosper in?
I think it's something you have to normalise yourself to. You know, you have to play in that role a lot. Like he said, the manager's encouraging them to try and break the lines with that first pass. Then that kills the press. He got it dead on. That's exactly what it does. But it is about picking the right pass and not turning that forced pass and putting yourself under pressure. So I wouldn't say it's a natural position for Callum, but something he can definitely work on. He's a good passer of the ball, and the key is that you're a good defender first in that position, because you'll always make the more sensible decision and a more defensive position. You won't take the risk. But as we could see the manager today highlighting that position, I think that's going to be key. He wants moves to start from there, and he's going to pick the player that can do that the best.
Lots of goals to look back, and of course over the 8 that we've scored at Borehamwood. First of all, the second half goals, 3, and this is Eddie Nketiah. He is a poacher, isn't he, as we know?
Yeah, I mean, we saw him come on in the League Cup, didn't we, and get 2 beautiful goals, poacher's goals at the right time. Another one today. A good second half performance. He looked lively, he looked fit. He still looks young to me, you know, that he hasn't fully matured and blossomed into that full man, but, you know, he's got a lot going on.
Jeffrey in Adelaide with a bit of a howitzer. Of course, he was on loan at Angers last season, didn't get too many opportunities in French football, but we know what a talent he is.
Yeah, right foot strike outside the box, bottom right hand corner as the keeper's looking at it. Lovely finish, lovely ping finish. And the nice thing was, he was actually disappointed when he came off a little bit early. He didn't get his full 45 in, but he got a great goal.
And we were just looking at the Mkhitaryan goal there as well, right at the end of that footage. Great touch from Eddie Nketiah to see up the Armenian.
Yeah, and the Armenian don't turn down an opportunity to have a strike on goal. Good side foot finish, nice and clinical, but lovely touch and awareness from Eddie. Yeah, really good play.
There were the 3 for the second half, 5 from the first half, of course. A hat-trick for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. We spoke to him at half-time. The first, the pick of the bunch.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I think his and Jeff's goal, pick of the bunch, but I did like the touch by Eddie. It was really fluid, and it was right in the middle of a nice fluid move. Played at high speed, high tempo, and Borehamwood, for all of their effort and that, you know, they just fell short at the last minute. Unfortunately, they didn't get a goal themselves.
A second header, scoring different types of goals, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. A couple from outside the box, headers. We saw a few crosses, you know, in the first half. I think it's more of a rounded Arsenal side with with the midfield being concentrated on the most at the moment.
We just saw the penalty, the hat-trick completed by Emery Aubameyang after, of course, Reece Nelson was bundled over. Then Nelson himself got on the score sheet. And this is a player who is going to kick on, we know, this season. Is there any sort of pressure on him this campaign?
Well, Reece, for me, was the most talented of the young players that came through. He played at right full-back and right wing-back, and his ability on the ball, especially in those attacking thirds, was great enough. But I think he's kind of been overtaken by Ainsley a little bit in the maturity stakes. But still got a quality about him that will take him far in this side. But it's all down to him to do it on the pitch, you know, to just put it out there and say to the manager, this is what I've got, you need to pick me.
And lastly, of course, we've just seen the Lacazette goal as well. Are we seeing the partnership as Aubameyang left-hand side, Lacazette through the middle? Do you think that's how they're going to play?
I'd like to see them play like that, because the threat that they pose to the opposition, and even just by the names on the team sheet, they'd be looking at thinking, do you know what, there's a bit of pace there. I think it does scare people again. I think we haven't had that for a few seasons, and what with the new manager bringing a fresh breath of air, if you like, and giving them a boost, they're even more dangerous than they were when they signed.
There are bigger tests to come, of course, certainly pre-season before we get into the start of the season. Atletico Madrid, of course, around the corner. We're going to play Chelsea as well, and it starts to get tougher because we get a very, very hard start to the campaign with Manchester City at home and Chelsea away the first two games.
Well, I think it's probably the ideal preparation to play some of the best teams in the world before you play some of the best teams in your league. And, you know, there's no hiding place in the Premier League this year, and there's no hiding place in pre-seasons anymore. Once these couple of sort of charitable friendly games are over, it is down to the real nitty-gritty of playing tough teams.
And I asked you about Unai Emery at the start of the game. What do you think he will take away from this 8-0 win over Borehamwood? How important is it going to be for him?
I think he'll be happy with the confidence of his forwards, especially of his firing forwards, his high-flying forwards. And I think he'll be happy with the youngsters, their contribution, the way they listened to him, the way they kept to their team shape, and particularly for me, the defence in the first half had a real good balance about them and shape when we was attacking, because we was vulnerable sometimes when we attacked last year. We didn't have that today in the first half, and I think he'll take that away with him.
Well, there are bigger fish to fry, no doubt about that, but Emery's reign begins with an 8-0 win over Borehamwood. From all of us here, it is goodbye. We will see you next time.